In this video, I'm going to show you 3 different ways in which you can mix a track that has no intro at the start of it and just goes straight into the main part of the track, like this. And like this. These 3 DJ techniques that I'm going to show you I have been using for many years in my live DJ sets. So I'm very confident that these should help you with your DJing and work for you also. Let's get into it. Alright, so the first technique that I'm going to show you is when you find a certain section of the track that doesn't have any vocals in, and you can use that section to mix the track in and then hot cue jump back to the start of the track and then play the track in full. So for example, if we listen to the start of the track here on the left hand side, we can hear this part here that just has some drum elements. So there's no vocals here and not really much melody. So what we can do is use this small section of the track to mix the track in and mix over the top of the other track that's previously playing, and then hot cue jump back to the start and play the track in full. Because for me personally, the start of this track is quite significant and you would want to include that in. So from here, I'm just going to set a 4-beat loop, save this in the hot cue bank, and also go back to the start of the track, just here, set another hot cue, and this is where we're going to jump back to after the mix. Now, the reason why I use these 4 beats here and not the 8 beats in total is because there's a little bit of vocal that trickles over here. And if we loop that part of the track, it's not going to sound very good when mixing. So it'll sound like this. So you can hear that vocal there repeating itself, and that'll just clash with the other track. So using this second 4 beats here, it's a lot nicer and we should be able to mix with that more, and then hot cue jump back and play that key bit of the song that everyone's familiar with. So you get the best of both worlds. Now some people might say you can get the intro versions of tracks from DJ specific websites, which you can do, and you can also use them to DJ with. So just here now, I've got the track One Dance, but the intro version, which sounds like this. It's very similar to the loop that I've just created. And then at the end of generally 32 beats, it goes into the track. Grips on your ways, front way, back way. Alright, and there we have the intro version. However, now there's some reasons why we might not be able to use this. The first one is we might not be able to get hold of intro versions of certain tracks, so you might just have to deal with and mix the original versions. And secondly, sometimes you might not want to play the intro version. Now, one thing I have found is that sometimes the intro versions don't have the full start of the track and miss out key parts. So for example, this intro version here misses out the baby part of the track. Grips on your ways, front way back. It just goes straight into that part. So it misses this. Baby, I like your stuff. Which I personally think is a key part in that track and gets a big reaction from the audience when they hear that. One reason for this is most people don't listen to the intro versions of tracks when they're at home or in their car or in their leisure time. They'll listen to the original versions of tracks, which is mainly found on Spotify and on the radio. So they're more familiar with the original starts of the tracks, and that will get the better and bigger reactions sometimes in the clubs and in the bars. So that's another reason why I don't like using some of these intro versions. Now that's not always the case, but it's good to have a listen to the tracks and make a decision. And for me, I prefer the original version of One Dance rather than the intro version. So let's drag that other track up that we had, which was Yeah, another popular track, and it starts like this. So there's quite a lot of vocals there and it'd be very hard to mix with that track as it would just clash with the vocals of another track. However, if you go right to the end of the track, we have a section where there is no vocals. Lil John got the beat to make your booty go. So we can use this section to mix with. So now if I just wind it back, now I personally like using loops to mix in with. So I'm going to set a loop here, save it in hot cue bank B just for now, and then set a hot cue right at the start. Now it's up to you if you want to set it right at the start, so here. So you include that little bit of a vocal, but I think I'm going to set it at this point here. So then at the end of this part where you might mix in with, We can hot cue jump back to the start. There's a little bit of the vocal trickling over, but I don't think the audience are going to notice that too much. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly set some exit points on these tracks. I'm not going to go into too much detail on how to set these. If you do want to learn more about how I set my systems, how I do my hot cues, and mix any track into any track, feel free to check out my online DJ courses below this video. There is only so much you can teach on YouTube, and online courses just give you that platform to go into a lot more detail in DJ techniques and cover a wide variety of techniques and give you a structured learning process that will take you from start to finish. So if you are interested in that, make sure you check out the link below this video if you want to learn how to do professional sounding DJ sets. Alright, so I'm just going to set a few of my hot cues here. Alright, and let's show you an example of how I would do this type of mix, and then after that I'm going to show you a live example of me doing it in a club. Alright, so that's one way. Let's mix back the other way. Let's flick it on a bit. That's why I need a one dance. Got a Hennessy in my hand. One more time before I go. Higher powers taking a hold on me. I need a one dance. Got a Hennessy in my hand. One more time before I go. Higher powers taking a hold on me. Alright, so that's a couple examples though of how you can use a different section of the track to mix the track in and then just hot cue jump back to the start of the track at the end of the mix to play the track in full. Alright, so what I have here is a live clip from me DJing in a club, and I've also got my Rekordbox screen here on the left hand side so you can see the track's waveforms and see exactly my techniques that I use when I DJ. What you'll see here is the track One Dance is on the left hand side, which is the top waveform. I have that forward beat loop set up and a hot cue at the start. And you'll just see now how I mix this track in and then hot cue jump back to the start of the track at the end of the mix. Let's have a listen. I like the way you brush it. I like those stylish clothes you wear. I like the way the light with the icing blend. I can see you moving way over there. If you wanna go and take a ride with me, we can do the phone, we can go easy over. Alright, now the second way in which we can mix a track that has no intro at the start is we can use stems. So basically what stems does is it allows you to remove certain sounds from tracks such as the drums, instruments and vocals. Now I have just set up stems on my EQ dials for the purpose of this tutorial, and if you want to know how you can do that, I will put a card up to a video just above this at the top of the video here, and that video will show you how you can set up stems on your DJ controller. So basically if I press play on the right hand side now, with the EQ dials I can remove the drums, instruments and just leave the vocals. Put the drums back in, instruments and also remove the vocals. Now, as well as doing it on the EQ dials, if you don't have that set up at the minute, you can just press these buttons here. So we can remove the drums, instruments, put the drums back in, instruments, take out the vocals. Now, with doing that, we can avoid any significant clashes of the sounds, such as vocals. So for example, now on this track on the right here, instead of having this hot cue at the start, what we can do is just set a 32 beat loop and use this to mix in with by removing the vocals. So I can press play here, remove the vocals, and we have effectively an intro that we can mix with. And then when it loops back round at the end of the mix, we can introduce them vocals back in again. And then carry on with the song as normal. So let's have a go at that mix now.
That's why I need a one dance. Got a Hennessy in my hand. One more time before I go. Higher powers taking a hold on me. I need a one dance. Got a Hennessy in my hand. One more time before I go. Higher powers taking a hold on me.
And then exit the loop. And the track should play as normal. Alright, let's see if we can do it back the other way. So we need to set a loop around here. So let's set a 32-beat loop. Save that in Hotkey Bank B here, and then just remove the vocals and mix that in, and then when it goes back round to the start of the loop, we can then reintroduce them vocals again. So let's flick it forward and do that mix.
Way back way, you know that I don't play. Streets not safe, but I never run away, even when I'm away. OT.
And that will sound like the intro version that I showed you before. At the end of that, you could always hotkey jump back to the part where it says baby. But that's just a different option and a different style that you could choose. The point here is that you can use stems to remove them vocals and instruments and drums to avoid any clashes of these sounds, and do a mix that way if the track doesn't already have an intro at the start of it. You can create your own intro just by removing them vocals from the track and then reintroducing them after you've done the mix. Now, I don't have any examples of me doing this live because personally I don't really like to use this option. I like to use the first option or the option I'm going to show you next after this, as I have been trying stems out in my live DJ sets ever since it came out over the last few years. And even though it is a good tool, sometimes I feel like it can just lack some energy in your mixes when you're removing sounds from your tracks in bigger environments such as clubs with bigger sound systems. So for me, I'm quite cautious about using stems in my live DJ sets. I do think it's really good for using for social media and for online videos, as you can't really get a feel for the track with the energy of the track so much as you can do in a club or at an event with a loud sound system. It is getting a lot better, and it's something that I've been using a lot and I want to keep an eye on because I do think it would change the whole game of DJing, and the stems, like I said, is getting a lot better. But for me, I think there's better ways of mixing two tracks together than removing the vocals from one track and the instruments and drums from another. Alright, now the third and final way that you can mix a track that has no intro is probably the most simple but still effective way of mixing these tracks together, and that is simply just to echo out of one track and press play on the next track at the start. Now, even though it is simple, you still need to have good timing and know when to do this and execute this mix. You don't just want to do it at a random point in the track, as it will throw the audience off. But from here, just at my hotkeys where I've set to mix out, just at the end, I can just set an echo on this track and then simply press play on the track on the right, which would sound something like this.
One more time before I go. Higher powers taking a hold on me.
And then let's try it back the other way. Now, I do understand that might seem a little bit too simple and a little bit too easy, and sometimes DJs don't want to hear to do that when they're DJing live, as it just seems like it doesn't take much skill to do. Now, I'm not saying you should do this with every mix, by no means am I saying that, but I am saying there is a time and place just to echo out of one song and press play on the next track. One of these times is if your track doesn't have an intro at the start, and it does have quite a bit of impact when you press play. It is possible to do with these two tracks here, and in fact, I used to do this with these two tracks. So the track Yeah Little John is actually a really good track to do this with, and it has a lot of impact when it comes in. You just echo out of one song at the right point, let the energy die off a little bit, and then just press play at that start, and it comes in with a lot of impact and the crowd reacts. Sometimes even I would choose this option with certain tracks because it does have a better impact than mixing them together and bringing it in subtly and smoothly. So one example of doing this is a track that's recently come out and quite popular at the minute called Rich Baby Daddy by Drake. And I've just got the original version on the right hand side, and let's get the intro version on the left hand side. Now, similar with the track One Dance, if I was to mix this track in with the intro version, it would sound like this. Alright, so we have the first 32 beats here that you can use to mix with, and then listen to the lyrics that it goes into after the intro part. Alright, now this is quite a popular song at the moment, and for me that just steals the key part of the song, which is the start of it. So personally, when I DJ this track in the club, I will just start it from here. And that part of the song though gets a big reaction from the crowd. If you use the intro version of that track, you're stealing that away from the audience. Now again, I'm not saying do this on every track. I would say in my DJ sets, 90% of the tracks, if not 95%, I am mixing the tracks together, but sometimes it's quite nice to reset the audience and just echo out of one song and press play on the next at a key point, so the audience just aren't hearing to the same BPM and the same rhythms and the same mixes over and over again. So for example, just to prove my point, I have a live video here that I did in the club, and it's a point of view video, and basically I just echo out of one song and press play on that track, and you can hear the audience reaction and just how it works and serves the audience. So as you can hear then, that mix clearly worked, and if I did the intro version of the track, I wouldn't have had that reaction from the audience. This just shows that not every track has to be mixed, and not every mix has to be complicated. You have to do what's best for the audience, and sometimes just echoing out of one song and pressing play on the next is what's needed at that time. If you like this video and you want to learn more about DJing, check out this video here that YouTube is suggesting to you, and I'm sure this will help you out with your DJing as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the future. Bye for now.